on to our first speaker, which will be Dr. Craig Blewett. And as I mentioned in the intro, Craig is an associate professor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Craig will correct me shortly, I'm sure, if I haven't. And that's in South Africa. And he's also the author of a book called Activated Classroom Teaching. And just before I sort of properly hand over to Craig, I wanted to give a bit of context to how we have we invite Craig really to do this event, and it's mainly due to I read your book, Craig, some years ago. I know it was published in 2017. Activated Classroom Teaching is the title of the book, and that was a book that I was using as part of my dissertation when I was doing my MA in education, and also looking to draw up an approach to pedagogy within a school, looking at 21st century technology, looking at how we prepare young people for the modern age. And if you haven't read Craig's book, it is a really interesting read, thought-provoking, and you know, I mean, one of the things I remember vividly was when I mentioned the idea that there is a pedagogy called the chaos pedagogy to colleagues, that they thought I was going slightly mad. So Craig, perhaps you, when you're talking, perhaps you could also refer to that. But what I've done here is I've included a bit of a quote from the beginning of Craig's book at the top there. So without a guiding digital age pedagogy, we're playing educational roulette, and the stakes are high, the future of our children. And I think that's really what tonight is about. It's about making sure that that we are developing our pedagogical approaches to ensure that students are prepared in the best way possible for the modern world. Some of the things that Craig mentions in his book in terms of those different pedagogies: curation, conversation, correction, creation, and chaos. He mentions some tech examples in the book, and I know that some of them, even now, 2017, it's only what 5 years ago, but some of them have obviously haven't dated very well, but others have and are still with us and are still very good things that you can use in your classroom today. And the ones that I've sort of highlighted in green there are ones that I have used in the past in classrooms very successfully, and others that I know other people will have used and will have used successfully are listed there as well. So that gives you a little bit of a background as to how Craig has come to be presented to you. We're really delighted he's here with us tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Craig.
All right, thanks, Mark. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I assume you probably need to unshare.
You should be able to just share over the top of me, actually, Craig. There we go.
Okay, got it. Okay, right, there we go. Okay, fantastic. Right, before I just say anything, I'm going to be a little bit interactive, obviously, as Mark said, and as Tim mentioned, this is about active teaching and learning. So it would be ideal if you've got your laptop or even a phone handy nearby, you can just quickly leap in and go to that web address that you see there. Just open your browser, menti.com, and use that code that you can see on your screen. So then you can participate, which will be super cool. But obviously my time is limited, and this particular presentation ranges in time from everything from 2.5-hour workshop type style to this more compressed version. So I may be going relatively quickly. But as Mark mentioned, I am from South Africa, and very close, University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is on the east coast of South Africa. Although with COVID, I'm only there virtually. I now live on the west coast near the town of Cape Town. So there's the joy of the new era where we can do everything in a slightly different way. Right, I can see some people have arrived. You can still join as we proceed. Right, so very quickly, just a summary of where we're at and then what this is all about. As we all know, we got attacked by the horrible COVID bug. And while it brought many negatives, one of the interesting things that it brought about was an opportunity to try new spaces, new approaches to teaching and learning, and something I've been speaking about for a long time. As born testimony in that book and other places. And so I called this e-education island. You know, we were sitting in an old education space, and now there was this opportunity to be on this new space and reconceptualize teaching and learning in both the online and in the blended environments. And we were pretty excited. Well, not everyone. I was pretty excited because it'd been something I had been pushing for quite a long time. Others weren't as excited, but generally there was an anticipation, well, maybe this was the opportunity to do something new and interesting. And so we moved, whether we liked it or not, into this new teaching space of using technology. Well, then the results started to come out, whether it was just sort of things published in the news media or whether it was research. Basically, the bottom line was this is not really working. This wasn't particularly surprising, or at least not to me, because we had been seeing similar results to that for a long time. In fact, that example right at the bottom right there, Los Angeles schools and iPad program, was something from years ago where schools had tried to switch to a more technologically based approach to teaching, and it hadn't been successful. And so it was a little bit disheartening because the rest of the world in terms of business and society is shifting to using technology. And here comes schools, here comes higher education's opportunity to use technology, and it's just not really working, which doesn't make sense because in a way, it's been very effective in transitioning so many other aspects of our society. You think of Uber transitioning the movement space, or Airbnb transitioning the whole accommodation space, and it's just, what's going on? Why wasn't it working? And so it posed the big question as to, well, why is this incredible technology that has such potential not changing or having the impact we had hoped in the education environment? Well, I think to answer that, I need to very quickly highlight what I call the four education technology revolutions. You've heard about the fourth industrial revolution. It's sort of a play on that. Very quickly, if we have to do the sort of 4,000 or 5,000 year history of education, way back before anyone was around, all education was oral. People sat around and had conversation. I call it the oral era. And then there was, at some stage in that history, an innovation, a technology. It was an ability to write. Obviously, the first things might have been very rudimentary, but we've improved on this, and it became chalk, and it became pencils, and it became pens. But the concept was the same, that we could start to record things, and that changed learning because things could be recorded and not just be oral. Then there was another big EdTech revolution, probably about 500 odd years ago, Gutenberg's printing press. And that again changed things significantly because all of a sudden content could be reproduced, not only recorded, but reproduced and massively distributed and shared. And that also changed and impacted learning. It actually made learning quite inactive because we could just sit and read and consume content. Well, coming more recently to our modern era, the third EdTech revolution was the computer. And we ended up with these digital things that were amazing. We had things like PowerPoint, and we had smart boards, and we had all sorts of cool things that could digitize our technology. And this actually made us very efficient in our teaching. And so we started to shift from paper-based to a digital space. But hot on the heels of that was the fourth EdTech revolution. And this was the internet. And this ushered in what I call the connected era. It took all of this technology and it allowed the technology and the people behind the technology to suddenly talk. And so we find ourselves in the social media era. What we're doing right now, this is the connected era. All of a sudden, technology wasn't just something you used in a single space. It wasn't just something that made you more efficient. It could actually make you more effective. It could make you connect and do lots of things. And so we ended up with this fourth EdTech revolution that brought us to what I refer to as the connected era rather than simply the digital era. Now, why is this important? And I want to put it to you that when we look at what I term e-education island, the space that we are teaching at the moment, there are two sides to our new educational space. There is the one side, which is I refer to as the digital zone. This is our third EdTech era space. And then there's the other side, which is the connected zone, which is the fourth EdTech space. And you say, well, why does it matter? Well, it matters quite a lot because at the moment, most of us are missing the bridge to go from the one side to the other, or not even understanding that we need to go from the third EdTech era into the fourth EdTech era. And so there's a little bit of an illusion going on here because there is a piece that's missing in this puzzle. And it's the piece we miss when educating with technology. And it's the piece that's been missing for a long time. And as you probably guessed, The piece that's missing when it comes to teaching with technology is not the technology, it's not the content, it's the pedagogies that bind them together. And that's really where my focus, my research over the years has been, is trying to understand that. And so what's happened, well, I'll tell you what's happened in my view, is that we have arrived at this new island, either prior to COVID or now, and we've landed on the eastern shore in the digital zone. And we thought that we were doing a good thing. We were teaching with technology. We were using PowerPoint. We were using smart boards. We may even have been using Zoom, but we were certainly putting our students to sleep. And this is what has caused all of the negative results and publications and the results of the publications showing this is to be ineffective. So it's a passive side of the island. It's give them a YouTube video to watch. It's give them an ebook to read. It's give them some slides to look at. And so it used to be death by PowerPoint. Now it's probably snooze with Zoom. And the problem is we're under the illusion that we're actually teaching with technology. Well, we're not really. We're using technology. In order to teach with technology, we need pedagogy. And we need active pedagogies. And that's really where my focus was. How do we get to the other side of the island? Because that's really where our students are. That's where they're sitting. They're the ones who are connecting through social media, who are engaging, who are posting video content, and doing all those sort of things. How do we take our teaching and this great technology we've got and the great content we've got and activate it so that it becomes part of the connected zone? And so this is where I developed, based from my PhD research some years ago, was a development of a taxonomy of digital age pedagogies. And it was based on trying to understand how students interact and use technology for all sorts of things. And this is the taxonomy. The lowest pedagogy, which is not listed there, is the pedagogy of consumption, which is just what we're doing at the moment. All of you are just sitting and listening and consuming, whereas I'm doing all the talking. So you're not really actually doing more than consuming. The active pedagogies are curation, conversation, correction, creation, and chaos. And as Mark mentioned, I'll touch on each of them very briefly, including the crazy one called chaos. So up until now, we've actually spent all of our time sitting on the left-hand side of the island. I've used Zoom, a great technology, but what have you done? Maybe you hit the heart button occasionally, a little bit of interaction. But how do we actually effectively and purposefully embed pedagogies that will encourage engagement and activity in our teaching? And so we need to shift to the other side of the island. And so I'm going to welcome you to the active zone, to the connected zone, where we can play very quickly with a few of the pedagogies. Now, I obviously don't have a lot of time, so I'm really just going to highlight one or two and give you one or two that you can just play with very briefly within our 20 minutes within Mentimeter. So the first pedagogy of the ACT framework is the pedagogy of curation. And this is the idea of shifting content from prepackaged content to curating content. For example, we typically give our students read chapter 2 or here is the handout. We prepackage it for them, but the real learning happens when we ask them to go out and curate the content for themselves. It's something our students are doing all the time. Every time students sit online and decide what they're going to post, what they're going to share, what they're going to like, they are curating into their stream, whether it be a TikTok stream, a Facebook stream, whatever the stream is, they are natural curators. But when we use that and we encourage them to actually curate their own learning content, there are huge gains that are given to our students. And I'm not going to go into the 21st century things specifically, but there are huge things around critical reasoning and creativity that are built into this particular pedagogy. So this is the pedagogy of curation. So rather than just giving them the content, we encourage them to curate their own content. And there's great apps like Flipboard that could be used for them. Right, let's have a quick try. I'll give you a minute to do this. In front of you, there are 5 21st century skills: creativity, persistence, problem solving, risk taking, and critical thinking. On your app, on the Menti app, I want you to rank them in the order from the one you think is most important that students develop down to number 5. So you'll see you can change the order. I'm going to give you a moment to rate those in the order, rank them in the order from the 21st century skill you think is the most important our students should have down to number 5. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. So you should be able to do that on your Menti app. So arrange these 21st century skills. You don't have to have my order. Arrange them into the order that you think they should be in, from the one that is the most important our students should develop down to the last. Right. So as you're going, creativity currently in first place, and critical thinking coming in second place, persistence or problem solving jumping up to second place, but creativity holding strong with problem solving second and critical thinking third, with persistence coming in fourth and risk taking in 5. And there's a slide, and critical thinking taking the lead, coming up to second place and fighting strong to get up with creativity, but creativity still holding the lead at number 1 after 16 votes. Okay, all right, besides the horse race type feeling, right, what are we doing here? I could have presented you with the order. This is the order of how important these 21st century skills are. This one's number 1, this one's number 2. By getting you to actually start to arrange them, you had to think for yourself which one is more order, and that's part of curating. Curating is not only selecting content, it's arranging content. And so when you look at this final list, you say, well, I disagree. I actually think risk-taking is number 1. Fantastic. That's getting you thinking. And now all the critical thinkers and the people who have now seen problem solving jumping to 1, they're upset. Fantastic. And this opens up the opportunity to engage with the other pedagogies like conversation, which we'll talk about in a moment. So very, very quick example of using something merely just around structuring the order or of something which is part of curation. So curation is about finding, selecting, and arranging content. So we've just picked on one part of that, which is arranging. And at the end of the day, problem solving won the day. Right, very quickly, the next of our pedagogies is the pedagogy of conversation. Now, typically, most education is passive instruction. The student sits and we talk. Yet there are such incredible tools available to bring them into the conversation, whether this be online or in the classroom. I see later there's some tools that are going to be talked about. Here's one, and this is actually just a website called tlk.io, which is free and I love using because it's sort of like a disposable chat room. You literally go tlk.io/ and whatever you put after the URL becomes your unique chat room. And it's when you finish, you just toss it away and that's it. But it's just a very quick, I want to talk to you as class about something. We're great on the mobile, get the class to come in and say, what do you think about recycling? Well, let's have a quick chat. And it breaks the barrier, and especially in classrooms, and I work in the university where there's lecture rooms and hundreds of students. We do this in lecture rooms where getting a student to engage in conversation in that space is almost impossible. Bring out the tech, put out something like this, and all of a sudden they are more than happy to start having an IM style conversation. So we have the technology that we can so easily bring conversation into our classroom and switch something which is purely normally just passive, sit and listen and consume to, well, you give me your opinion, let's talk a little bit about it. And even the shy ones are prepared to start to have conversations on little apps like this, so on websites like this. So that's just one very quick example of using conversation as a pedagogy. One of the most interesting of the ACT pedagogies is the shift that has or needs to take place from our obsession possibly with being correct to correcting. The world has changed. We live in a world where your latest iPhone iOS is always in beta, or you're always getting updates on your OS or whatever, because everything is constantly correcting. We live in the wiki world. What's a wiki? A wiki is something which I remember reading the research on. Wikis are terrible. Well, you go look at the research on the accuracy of Wikipedia compared to Encyclopedia Britannica and others, and you'll find that it's actually the same. The difference is a lot of those encyclopedias have died, but Wikipedia continues. And the reason is it's not correct. It starts with that premise, but it's correcting. And so we live in a world where we need to adopt this concept that learning happens in the failure. But the goal is to constantly be correcting and purposefully build correction into our assessment and learning. So it's not just summative. It's part of the formative process. And I know you're going to do Kahoot later. Kahoot's a great example of correction as a pedagogy, but I'm going to put in a quick question or two right here inside our presentation so you can get a taste of correction in this presentation. So here we go. There's a couple of questions. There's 2 now and 2 just in a couple of minutes at the end. This is how it works. Similar to Kahoot, there's a question, there's multiple choice. The faster you answer, the more points you get. So you only got about 10 seconds to answer the question anyway. So you need to be quick if you want to get maximum points. So here we go. Here's your first question. Are you ready? Answer fast if you want. Lots of points. What does this emoji mean? What does this emoji mean? Here are your options, and you've only got a few seconds left. Give up, happy, dancing, or okay. 3 seconds left. Get your answers in quickly before it's up. And there we go. Time is up. And no one getting it. Well, it actually means okay. Isn't that interesting? Whole nother conversation how we misunderstand what emojis are, and they mean different things to different people. But if you've ever done diving, we use the okay symbol when we're diving, and that's actually where it came from. Well, everyone chose happy and dancing and all sorts of other things. No points. So on the leaderboard, all is fair and square with no one getting anything. But don't worry, here is question 2, your chance to redeem yourself. Question 2, very easy one. Whose logo is this? Whose logo is this? Be quick, get it in fast. If you're not sure, ask Elon Musk and he will tell you whose logo this is. And here we go. Whose logo is it? And the results are in. Oh no, this is extremely embarrassing with 13 people saying it's Twitter. Now I'm going to put that down just to being not reading carefully. Or it could be embarrassing if you're in the classroom and you tell your students how you've been reading about Twitter in the news. Okay, obviously it's not Twitter, it is Twitter. And it's certainly not Birdia, but there we have it. It is Twitter. So let's see who got top of the board there. And it looks like the fastest was Agent X9. So Agent X9 holding the lead right at the top with Clippy and Shema in 3rd place. Right, we'll have pick up 2 questions in a moment as we finish off. The next of the ACT pedagogies is the pedagogy of creation. And this is trying to shift our students from merely being content consumers to taking all the great tech we have, even like a cell phone, to all the tools that are online, like Canva or whatever it may be, or Powtoon, to build and create. It's so exciting. Let me give you a chance to create something, just to shift this up. I'm going to give you a minute to see if you can come up with an acronym to do with teaching that spells active. So a cool teacher is very excited. Okay, you can choose. I'm going to give you a minute. Your chance to be a little bit creative. That's the acronym you want to come up with is creative. Create an acronym that spells out active, but it's something to do with teaching. Can you come up with something? Right, yeah, we've got some. A clever teacher is very educational. All common turtles include vomiting. I'm glad that one's really got a lot to do with education. Maybe you're teaching turtle graphics. We have got 2 that have come in so far. Any more people? It's always you get the first few words and then you get a bit stuck. Active classrooms, try, very enthusiastic. I like that. Always create tools inside vacation encampments. That's lovely how we have to force the words in and make it make sense. Always create teaching that is very exciting. Always call in to invite various conversations. You're missing a letter there. All carrots taste incredibly versatile. It's a vegetable. As comfy to indicate very enthusiasm. All can teach very enthusiastic. Ooh, I like that. A creative teacher is very enthusiastic. Okay, fantastic. The crazy tiger includes various eggs, and there's more tiger ones. But as much as I'd like to continue reading them all, my time is running out. So thank you for being creative and being involved. But what you've done is you have got involved in creating, but there are such incredible tools. And my daughter is just finishing her master's research where she's been taking the ACT pedagogies and looking at their ability to predict student success in an online course. And she discovered that this particular pedagogy creation is the highest predictor of student success. Essentially, what it means is that if students are involved in creating content, the chances of them being successful in a course is extremely high. So great thing to get involved with, using tools for encouraging our students to become active in their learning. Just as an aside, if you've never tried this great tool that I came across about 6 months to a year ago called whiteboard.fi, unlike traditional whiteboards, each student has their own personal whiteboard, and you as the teacher can see them all, or you can even highlight and bring a certain student's whiteboard to the fore. So they get to work in their own creative space, but you can push content to all their spaces and see all their spaces. So a great tool. It's actually recently, as you can see, they're bought by Kahoot, so whiteboard.fi. Right, let me just finish off with the last of our pedagogies, the pedagogy of chaos. As Mark mentioned, most people, when they talk about chaos, they say, what are you talking about? The last thing we need in our classrooms is chaos. Well, let me explain it very quickly. This is a need for a pedagogic shift from control to chaos. And maybe the way to understand it is that chaos has 2 elements to it. It's not the disorderly chaos that you have of things just running around wildly. Chaos is to do with creating situations where there is pressure, which often makes students freak out, and it might be a time pressure, it might be a volume pressure, and in that you hope to develop perception, and often it's under pressure that we start to see things. In fact, there's a nice little quote, I don't know if I've actually got it here, from William Dole. the teacher must intentionally cause enough chaos to motivate the student to reorganize. And so it's creating situations where we don't make everything A, B, C leads to D, where the answer is found in the back of the textbook. We live in a world that's very messy. We live in a world that has too much information, missing information, fake news information. How do we teach our students to navigate that? We have to intentionally design experiences, learning experiences that build in the pedagogy of chaos. And the pedagogy of chaos is actually based on all the other pedagogies. So you could take conversation as an example, and I can add a chaos layer to it. So we can have a very sedate conversation, or we can have it as a debate, and there's time involved. And all of a sudden, that adds a pressure layer to the conversation and brings the element of chaos to it and amps up everything, especially the cognitive investment of the students. So great thing to try. And so this is what the pedagogy of chaos is essentially about. Can you read that? Amazing how clever our brains are. We can look at noise. We can look at things that don't make sense, and we can actually make sense of it. And that's what this is about, the ability to make sense of noise and see patterns. And that's often brought about when we bring some pressure. So our very last activity consists of a chaos activity. And question 3 is the chaos activity, just so you get a chance. And you don't have much time for this. You literally have 30 seconds for this activity. You have 30 seconds to type in order, correctly spell the names of the 8 planets. No comments, just a space, no commas, just a space between each word. So you must type the names of each of the planets, one after another with a space. 30 seconds. Remember the 8 planets. Don't give me number 9. 30 seconds. Spell them correctly. No space. Her space, no commas. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. Time is nearly up. Type, type, type. Have you got a spelling error? If you've got a spelling error, it's all over. You will get 0 points, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and the time is up, and the time is up. And there we have it. Let's see if anyone got it right. Some just managed to get Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. And yes, the correct answer is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And let's see how many got it right. Right. Yes, a few to Agent X9. Well done. You were the only one. Right, now that was actually an example of a chaos activity. I didn't have time to do other chaos activities, but really what we were doing is we're taking something that was to do with correction and adding a massive amount of pressure to it. And that's particularly what chaos it is. It works in conjunction with all of the other pedagogies. And Agent X9 stepped out and says, I can do it, and did it. Right, so very quickly, those are the 5 ACT pedagogies. And so hopefully you've had a quick welcome to the active connected era. The first sort of 5 minutes was very passive. The second was starting to invoke these pedagogies and actively think about how do I design them into my teaching. For anyone who is interested, we have a complete online course that works through this. It's approximately a 40-hour course. There are smaller versions as well, but it goes through each of these pedagogies in a lot of detail and shows you tools. So it's obviously a very active course. Otherwise, it wouldn't be living up to what I say. You can find out more about that at activatedacademy.com. So it's a course that basically leads you through each of the pedagogies in a very activated way, shows you tools, and also helps you develop lesson plans, what are called activated lesson plans based on the pedagogies. Right. So my final question to finish it, before I get into too much trouble, question 4 of 4. Here we go. The last question to determine the ultimate winner. The key to active blended teaching, even just active teaching, is which of these? You've got a few seconds left. Pedagogies, activity, paradigm shifts, or engagement. 2 seconds left. 1, and the time is up. And they all correct. Yes, I just wanted to give you a little bit of freak out, and they all look correct. They are all correct. We need pedagogy, we need activity, we need paradigm shifts, we need engagement. All of these are key if we want to shift to being effective in the new era. So at the end of that, the fastest that time was Ted, actually, but was it enough? I don't think, for Ted to finally make it. At the end, Agent X9 takes it. Well done, Agent X9. I'm sure your prize is in the post from Mark and Tim. Right, so on that, welcome to the future, everyone. Hope you have an exciting future teaching with technology. For me, we are on the edge of something really exciting if we do it properly. So thank you for your wonderful attention.